He is one of the thinkers who can be said to have had a huge influence on the creation of the modern world. Best known for his theories that led to the development of Marxism. He was a revolutionary activist and philosopher whose works inspired the foundation of many communist regimes in the 20th century. For him, capitalism was a living hell that chewed up humans' life and exploited them. The accumulation of wealth on one side and the accumulation of misery on the other are reflected to show that 8 men own the same wealth as the 3.6 billion people, who makes up the poorest half of humanity. Karl Marx was born in 1818 in the Rhineland region of Prussia. He studied law and philosophy at the University of Bonn and Berlin. His adult life started with political activities, from having a career as a radical journalist to critical writing and the Revolutionaries Organization, while political conditions were such that to associate and write as he wished, he had to live outside of Germany for most of his time. So he ended up spending periods of exile in Paris, Belgium and London. For well over half of his adult life, from late 1849 until he died in 1883, Marx lived in London, a city providing a secure haven for political exiles, and have a wonderful point from which to study the world's most advanced capitalist economy. During his time in exile, he struggled intellectually and personally, which affected his political writings and works. His early writings are devoted to the understanding of alienation. Then he developed an influential theory of historical materialism. After a while, he increasingly became preoccupied with an attempt to understand the contemporary capitalist mood of production, as driven by a remorseless pursuit of profit, whose origin are found in the extraction of surplus value from the exploited proletariat. There are 2 major flaws inherent in capitalism. First, the chaotic nature of free market competition and the extraction of surplus labor. Second, all capitalist profit is ultimately derived from the exploitation of the worker. The dirty secret of capitalism is that it is not a realm of harmony and mutual benefit, but a system in which one class systematically extracts profit from another. If workers only need a few hours of the working day to spend on producing value equivalent to the value of their wages, then any work the workers do above this is known as surplus labor, producing surplus value for the capitalists. Ultimately, Marx predicted that capitalism would eventually destroy itself as more people become downgraded to working class status. Inequality rose and competition would lead the rate of corporate profit to 0. This would result, as he summarized, in a revolution by the working class. To exploit someone is to take unfair advantage of them. It is to use another person's vulnerability for one's benefit. Of course, benefiting from another's vulnerability is not always morally wrong. For instance, we do not condemn a chess player for exploiting a weakness in his opponent's defense. But some form of advantage taking do seem to be wrong. In Das Kapital, Marx tells us that society is composed of 2 main classes. Capitalists are the business owners who organize the process of the production and who own the means of the production, such as factories, tools, and raw materials, and who are also entitled to all the profits. The other, much larger class is composed of labor, which Marx called the proletariat. They do not own or have any claim to the means of production. Their 4 days' worth of effort and production is stolen, and they only get paid a small fraction of their labor values as wages. Their effort merely accumulates wealth for the capital owners. For him, in this uneven arrangement, capitalists are exploiting workers until they are completely drained. Marx thinks there can be different types of alienation. Religious alienation, which is more dominant in religious societies, where worshipping God diverted human beings from enjoying their human powers. It separates human beings from their own essence. Alienation from work, which only exists in class-divided and capitalist societies. Although Marx was greatly inspired by the thinking about religious alienation, much more of his attention was devoted to exploring alienation in work. He thinks that religion is a response to alienation in material life, and therefore cannot be removed until humans are emancipated from this material life. He thinks that contemporary economic arrangements transform workers into deformed and dehumanized beings. He identifies 4 dimensions of alienated labor in contemporary capitalist society. First, immediate producers are separated from the product of their labor. They create a product that they neither own nor control, indeed which comes to dominate them. Second, immediate producers are separated from their productive activity. In particular, they are forced to work in a way that are mentally and physically draining. Third, immediate producers are separated from other individuals. Contemporary economic relations socialize individuals to view others as mere means to their ends. Fourth, and finally, immediate producers are separated from their human nature. For instance, contemporary capitalist relations frustrated the human capacities for a free, conscious and creative workplace and community. Marx thinks that work has the potential to be something creative and fulfilling. He consequently rejects the view of work as a necessary evil, denying that negative character of work is part of our fate or a universal fact about the human condition that no amount of social justice could fix it. Certainly, productive activity on Marx's account is a central element in what it is to be a human being, and self-realization through work is a vital component of human flourishing. He thinks that work in a different form of society could be creative and fulfilling. His account of human flourishing is that a society must satisfy not only basic needs for sustenance, warmth and shelter, certain climatic conditions, physical exercise, basic hygiene, procreation and sexual activity, but also less basic needs, both those that are not always appreciated to be part of his account, for recreation, culture, intellectual stimulation, artistic exploration, emotional satisfaction, and aesthetic pleasure, and most importantly, for fulfilling work and meaningful community. Marx was not against industrial advancement. He thinks that alienation flows from capitalist social relations and not from the kind of technical advances that capitalist society contains. His disapproval of capitalism is reserved for its social arrangement and not its manufacturing accomplishment. That is why he did not see industry and technology as the real villains, responsible for devastating the supposedly communitarian haven of pre-capitalist relations. Rather, he wishes for the destruction of the bourgeoisie, feudal and sees technological growth and workers' liberation as progressing together.